Hi, everyone. It's Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Admissions Live. I'm your host, Nicole Lentine, and today on the show, I'm speaking to Yolanda Norman, founder and CEO of FirstGenCollege Consulting, LLC, to discuss the issue of summer melt, especially with first-generation, low-income, and minority students, and how we can better support students to encourage their enrollment in the fall. Admissions Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, a series of professional development web shows and podcasts, which are always free and accessible to you in the archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Be a part of our broadcast by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. You can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. Today's show would not be possible without the support of Champlain College and M. Stoner. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. M. Stoner is offering free 30-minute print consultations in May and June. Interested in having your suite of admission or advancement materials reviewed? We're tweeting out a link where you can learn more and sign up. Admissions Live is sponsored by Chegg Enrollment Services. Chegg Enrollment Services connects the nearly 80% of college-bound students researching schools across the web with the colleges and universities who are trying to reach them. Using an online platform that includes over 10 of the most popular college search sites online, Chegg can help you save over 90% on the cost of traditional methods for generating your inquiry pool. Email outreach@chegg.com to schedule a free consultation, and I'm tweeting out a link about them. So now I'm excited to welcome my guest on, Yolanda Norman. And so Yolanda, if you want to just share a little bit about your higher ed and your experience in this field.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here to talk about this very important topic. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on.
Well, my experience, I guess I've been in higher ed for about 13 years now. Most of my experience has been within the world of residence life, which I personally think is the backbone of student affairs and really learning everything you can about students and how they develop themselves. From there, after being in higher education for a while, I actually went down to secondary education and worked as the college readiness manager for Houston ISD. And it was at that moment that I began to see the two worlds and saw the pieces coming together for myself. After working within the district, I now am an entrepreneur on my own and kind of continuing that first gen journey of doing something for the very first time and being able to help districts and universities and organizations and even working one-on-one with families to help them to understand education and leadership and giving them all of my experience that I've had the opportunity to have within my years in higher education.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the fact that you made mention of your entrepreneurship and helping to support all those communities. And actually, I think now's a good time to plug, and we can remind everybody at the end, but you just released a promo video when you're doing some good video work. So do you want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah. It's been a long time coming. I get questions all the time from first generation students and even multi-generational students just about the college process and understanding kind of those little nuances of college. Should I talk to my professor? Should I not talk to my professor? How do I pay for housing? All these different things. And I usually answer a lot of them on Twitter, but I'm starting to become more and more questions. So I said, why don't I just do a YouTube channel? I kind of put it out there to a couple of people, and the response was so encouraging and so wonderful. So I am officially launching the First Gen TV YouTube channel June 19th, and go subscribe, everybody, to it, First Gen College TV, where I'm just going to talk about anything and everything First Gen, because these students need to come to a place, and our tag is "You Belong."
That's awesome. I love that tag. And yes, everybody, please go check it out. I know I plan to. I'll share the promo video from my account and from the Higher Ed Live account once we're done with the show. In the interest of trying to not do two things at once, I won't try to do it right now. But yeah, I hope you all get to check it out. And it's such an important, huge topic. And I'm so glad that you're giving the support to those students and to all of our different communities to be able to just help address, you know, so many topics and questions that are out there for first generation students, and for students who don't have these resources. And that's a great transition into, you know, our show topic. I think summer melt is a term that many admission offices and high school offices and anybody who works with college bound students are very familiar with. The idea that for those of you that don't know what summer melt is, it's really the kind of the process of losing students over the course of between high school graduation and enrollment in the fall, even if students have been accepted and I'm planning on enrolling. And there's so many different reasons that this could happen. And in doing the research in preparation for the show, I saw the kind of staggering statistic that nationally anywhere between 10 to 20%, and in some cases I saw even a higher percentage of college eligible students are melting away during the summer. And so, you know, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that are happening and how we can support those students. But could you talk about, you know, some of the biggest reasons that you see why this happens especially with this population of, you know, a huge percentage are first generation, low income and minority students?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is right within the name, low income. When you think about what that means, finances. So these students are talking about costs. You know, and it's not that every single student has everything paid for when they get to college. And if you think about the cost of college, there are certain things that are in there. And we know as an admissions professional, you're talking about housing, you're talking about going into courses, you're talking about travel. If you're going to out of state, do you have out of state costs? And sometimes during the summer with these particular students, they don't know who to contact if they run into a financial situation. And even if their situation changes during the summer, you know, some of the students that I work with, they still have to work. And they still have to work to be able to provide income for their family. And if something happens within that time period and the student doesn't necessarily understand, you can go and talk to the financial aid office. Tell them your situation has changed, but they don't always know that. And their parents don't always know that. So sometimes they decide I can't pay for it, it's not for me, I'm not going to college. And that's not right. We have to be able to help these students understand that particular process. I think another piece becomes about confusion with enrollment, registration. If I don't understand what that means, if I don't know to meet certain deadlines and I miss the deadline, as a first generation college student, I don't know that we need to talk to the system, you know, talk to whoever I can talk to. I go, oh my goodness, I missed the deadline. I'm not going to college. And I need to go ahead and start working. And I think another piece that comes in is the support at home. First generation students, low income students, if you're thinking about a low income population and their community that they're around, I was a low income student. And in my neighborhood was churches. In my neighborhood was a corner store, and that was it. And so for me, there really wasn't a college environment. There wasn't anyone talking about this is how you need to prepare during the summer, much less prepare for college, right? So now that I'm in, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do during the summer except wait, you know, and be excited that I'm going to get out there and go to college, this whole new world that I don't know anything about. And I'm just kind of sitting there, you know, maybe I should get a job, but I don't know what else to do at that point. And I think a fourth piece that I really like to talk about with my students, as well as I see a lot on social media, is students are just scared. They're just scared. It's just that feeling of, I'm going to leave this environment, regardless if it's low income or not. That's their environment. That is where they're from. That is their family. That is their support system. And to be able to go to this world of elite people who have all the money in the world and all the knowledge in the world, you know, kind of thinking about those things, I'm scared, you know, and it's a big jump. It's an unfamiliar jump, and maybe I have someone at home saying you should probably just work because our family needs you to work. And this whole college thing that we don't do, maybe it's not for you. And I want all the listeners that are currently on Twitter or currently on social media, go to your search engine and type in, with quotations, type in college scared. And I guarantee you will see students, not just first gen, you will see so many students talking about why they're afraid to go to college. And it's something we have to really think about on the college side as well as the high school side as well, as how do we help these students to be able to navigate those fears and give them some real world tips and advice about here's what you need to do when you feel that way, because they're going to feel that way regardless, but here's what you need to do.
Yeah, oh, wow, there is a lot there in everything that you just started off the show with, and I couldn't agree more on so many of those pieces. And I mean, you're making me think even with the last portion, I mean, all of us were scared when we went to college, no matter what your background was, no matter how many experiences you've had. It's terrifying. You're going completely out of your comfort zone. You go into a place you may not know anybody. I am grateful that we have social media to help, you know, do a little bit more of these conversations. You know, I remember, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, and it shows my age a little bit, but when I was heading off to college myself, I went on to LiveJournal and I searched the name of my college, and I found one poor person that I bombarded with questions all the time because I was terrified. And so it's so true, you know, it's so easy. We're kind of in these spaces where you say, you know, dealing with these questions all the time, it can be easy to forget that this is a terrifying prospect. And, you know, there's months between that acceptance and that enrollment. And it's so true. There's just so many pieces that can cause friction and questioning everything that you've thought you're going to pursue along the way. I think it's so important you brought up in one of your first points the kind of hidden costs that are there, because I started even thinking about, well, you know, I've had students reach out to me about the cost of orientation. You know, there's a cost associated because I think students don't always understand, you know, our dining services aren't open yet. So we need to be able to, you know, pay for you to eat. And we need, you know, you're paying for activities and things. But if you don't know that that cost is around the corner, you can see that number and just be, you know, just completely deer in the headlights trying to figure out, well, how do I afford that cost? And you may not know that there is a person you can reach out to say, I can't afford this. Can you help me? Because more often than not, there are people on the college campuses that can help. You bring up so many really, really great points there. And I guess you're making me think about, you know, a big piece of this is communications, right? It's putting it on us, you know, putting it on the high school side, as you mentioned, but also putting on the college side to be able to say, we can help you with this. You know, we have resources available. We're here to answer your questions. I tell students, my students I work with all the time that, but I don't think they take it seriously. But, you know, I'm here in my office. I'm here to help you. And so do you have any suggestions for, you know, ways colleges can kind of work that better into their communications flow?
Yeah, I definitely have lots of suggestions. I don't know if we have time to get all my suggestions, but just a couple of suggestions. And those who know me, they know that I am very big on social media. So let's talk about social media from here. Our students, why is Snapchat so big? Why do young people use Snapchat? And I think it's because of their attention span. Being able to see this very quick, instantaneous type of message and the funness that comes along with that. And I see universities and colleges using social media in such creative ways. So let me talk about some of the great things that I see and what I hear from students here in Houston about what really works for them. So I love to see when they are using the different platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, of course, Twitter, my favorite, and really putting information out there, but putting it out through students. So when I see a university allow students to take over their Instagram accounts, of course they have to work through the process and make sure they're vetting students who are going to be responsible, but to give that student perspective. So I think that one great idea that they could possibly implement is let a student maybe take over for the summer, or a couple of students take over for the summer, and put information about here are the steps that you can take. I think that when you introduce a different student maybe each week or every other week, you get this feeling of, oh, excitement. Who is it going to be this time? What's their major? Where are they from? These are real peer-to-peer advice types of situations given to the students, and maybe they're more inclined to follow that student to something that they're already using, that they're already ingrained in, and using it in a way that's really going to help them. I think another piece outside of the social media is on your website, have that same message about communicating. And so whether there is a campaign message about Operation Summer or something catchy that they can do, it's on your Facebook account, it's on your web email account, whatever you have, and share it with the high school. If they see the same message over and over and over, and we know we have to make sure our students, not just high school students, but even our college students, we have to continue to do messages over and over and over to them. So if you see that same message in multiple points, you're probably going to get it that this is probably important, and I need to pay attention. There are different apps out there that help students to help administrators to remind students about certain topics. Giving a shout out to Ben Castleman and Lindsay Page, who actually came up with this research. I think we knew about it in higher ed, we just didn't know what to call it. As a director of housing, I definitely had students where we would have to do a phone bank and tell them about getting their deposits in. And I would talk to some students, a lot of them low income, who would say, well, my situation's changed, I'm not coming to college. Oh, whoa, 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 let's work on that. Let's talk about that. So we felt it. We absolutely have felt it for years, and it's so nice to be able to put this term of summer melt to it and to help students to understand here are the steps that you need to take. So universities communicating back and forth to high schools, and I actually would encourage them to not just communicate admissions to high school counselor, but you have so many other amazing professionals in higher ed that can communicate as well. I would have loved for someone from a high school to ask me as a director of housing to come to their school and talk with them, or what things could I do to help their students understand about matriculating during the summer. I never got that, and I think it's because maybe we don't understand the housing people, maybe they just know housing. But we're very involved. You know, can you get someone from rec sports to talk about matriculating, orientation to talk about matriculating? So the communication should be widespread. I mean, cast that net, put it out there for everybody to be able to bite at it and really say, here's how I think that we can help the university bring in these students. And even beyond that, I think this is how we can bring in community to bring in these students, not just for our university, but helping these students in our city to understand here are the steps that you need to take, and here's when it's okay to call someone and tell someone that you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, that's wonderful advice. And I love, you know, I think we get so caught up in our own bubbles that we forget to reach out to each other and be able to offer those supports to each other. And it's gotten, I think, a lot better over the last few years. I know I've been on, been able to be involved in panels, and, you know, and we try to kind of support each other back and forth. But it's true. I think we sort of get wrapped up in the guidance side and the admissions side, but housing people, student life people. I know we brought up a group of students to visit our campus, and a lot of them were from kind of a lower income community, and alongside admissions speaking with them, our director of student life chatted with them, and our director of career services chatted with them, and the conversations were amazing, and the questions were just these things that we weren't even thinking about making sure we're a part of that conversation. So it's true. I think, you know, we're doing such a disservice by not being able to overlap our resources a little bit more and helping to bridge that, that kind of space in between, and helping to talk about, well, when should I ask questions? What questions, you know, should I be asking? Because there's so much, I mean, within this world of FAFSA and of Common App and of all of these pieces,
Right.
you know, so many of these pieces can kind of get lost along the way. And it's putting a lot of the burden on just the school counselor if they're not thinking about the other resources that are available to them.
Right, right. I think that another piece within the communication piece is talking about some type of timeline, right? Mm-hmm. And making sure that students across the country are kind of on the same timeline. Oh my goodness, how amazing would it be if we create some type of hashtag about summer melt? You know, the students don't know that term. We know that term. What if we created some type of hashtag around summer timeline or get me into college, some type of timeline or something with a hashtag, and every student knew what was going on every week, you know, and just across the country, how the effort of being able to do that. And certainly we have to be mindful that not every student has access to technology at home. And so being mindful of, if that is the case, in the high school counseling office, do I send that timeline information via paper? In the college office, am I sending that through the admitted information that's out there? When I celebrate the student and send them also a timeline as well. But I think over and beyond communication is possibly the most important piece. You should never stop communicating to students in every avenue, especially for these students, because again, it becomes, you don't know what you don't know. And so some of my students don't know to reach out. Regardless of how much we tell them, they have to hear it from different sources and multiple channels in order to be confident to actually take that step and do it.
Oh, that's so true. And I love that a few colleges out there have started to incorporate that timeline, that checklist right in the acceptance package of, okay, you're accepted. What does this summer look like? Because it does. It's actually, I saw a tweet from Karen Full saying, oh my goodness, I missed the deadline. I'm not going to college. This is more common than you think. And it's so true. You know, you know, it can be so easy to go, oh my gosh, I missed it. I actually, I'm not the top person that manages our Facebook page, but I help support it. And we had a few messages from students of, oh my goodness, I missed the deadline. Is it too late? Am I not going to be able to go to college? And it's like, no, it's okay. Well, let's figure out what we need to do from here. But it can give that impression. So making the expectations clear. And I mean, pretty much all these students are getting that acceptance letter. That's how they know that they're coming in. Why not make sure that it's right in that communication from the start? Because it's so true that that concept that you said, if you don't know what you don't know, well, how are you supposed to know that you need to get in, you know, your health form if it's not explicitly laid out in front of you? And it's so, so true. You made me think of something else too, because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to be able to get this sort of a momentum behind a campaign. And we saw it with Reach Higher, you know, I think that was a great example, you know, and I think at the last episode we had, Chris Dorso talked about it. But what a cool campaign that saw so many schools and students and oh my gosh, that was awesome. And if we can make that happen around, you know, this idea of college signing day and of deposit day, I mean, if there were any high school students that didn't know it was deposit day, I don't know how. They had to have been, you know, really disconnected from a lot of these things, but that was a massive campaign. So it shows that we can do it, but it's true. We need to really gather around it and talk about, well, how can we make this clear to students? And, you know, I love your hashtag of you belong, you know, maybe we can help, you know, get that involved. There we go. It started here, everybody.
We're pointing it, we're stamping it.
Exactly. But I love that idea, because I think, you know, if you, like you said, if you search college and scared, or even if you search the hashtag college bound, you see these conversations. And and I see these conversations on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page. I had one first generation student, and she's actually on our student ambassador team, and she's with my group of students that work on Twitter. And it's because when she enrolled, the summer before she enrolled, she was asking a lot of questions on Twitter, you know, and so I saw this kind of piece there of, okay, this is clearly an important communication tool for you. Let's keep you in the loop here. And so I love the idea of just spreading it everywhere, you know, in writing, on our website, in social, reaching out to the colleges. You make such a great point there. or reaching out to the high schools. And actually on that concept, so we're talking a little bit about the college communications, but I know we have some some school counselors that watch the show as well. So what kinds of things should they be doing in the months, right now, really, May and June, and before that, of course, as well, leading up to when the students are out of their schools and a little bit less control? What kind of things should they be thinking about right now?
Definitely. This was one of my projects that I was working on when I was in the district area. And some of the things that I actually noticed as the manager of counselors was my counselors were on different schedules. So I had 10 months, 11 months, 12 months. So it made it a little difficult to have that representation on the campus. So I think, first of all, a district has to figure out who's actually here during the summer. And of those people that are here, what avenues can we use to make sure the students still have someone that they can be able to talk to? Obviously, you want the counseling or the college counseling office available and open to the students. But knowing the districts across the country and understanding how each one is different, why don't you also take a look at the district? So can the district itself, the main building, if possible, can you have a college center during the summer? And during this college center, maybe you have a phone bank and students can call in with certain times about different questions that they have. Bringing on your counselors and having them to work during that time for the summer. Even bringing in maybe some current college students and having them to take care of the phones and say, here's what I went through, here's what I'm doing. I'm a presidential ambassador at the university, so here are the things that I know you need to do. They should also probably talk to them about the things that they didn't do and help them to understand not to fall into that same trap. So that's one idea, right? I think another idea is if your school is actually open for your students, go back to that timeline. Keep it up for them. It's okay to handhold sometimes. Why not help these students to be able to understand, especially hand-holding these students who may not have a hand to hold at all right now. So helping these students to understand, in this week, here's what you need to do. If you have problems, talk with me. We'll call the school together. Whatever avenues you can take to help them to understand these are the steps you need to take. And you can continue to work on autonomy training for them and giving them that encouragement that you can do this, let me see you do this, give them action steps to go through that. But having that counseling office open, wow, for the students to be able to go somewhere, sit down and say, I'm having trouble with this, or even, I'm great, I'm just excited. I'm excited about going to college, and I just want to tell you I'm excited about going to college. And just keeping that excitement and that encouragement up, I think, is very important. Obviously, you want to be as proactive as possible. So that's what happens during the summer, but being proactive even during the school year. And we know that's something that we as a country, we're working on right now to make sure that every student has the knowledge of understanding higher education. Just that general knowledge is something we're continuing to work on. So being proactive about the college fit, being proactive about financial aid or college affordability, being proactive with bringing college fairs, not just to the schools, but to the neighborhoods as well, and understanding what a higher education can do for these first generation students who, you got to understand, sometimes in our home, we're told, no, college is not the path that we go to. That's not the path that we're going to take. So you're battling all those different things. So being that proactive piece, I think, is very important. Colleges have amazing bridge programs, right? They have these programs where students can come on during the summer. Some of them are for maybe low-income first-generation students. Some of them are for advanced academics. So kind of depending, what the school wants to take. Why not bring those to the high school? Why not have some type of summer bridge program for high school students? And again, these current college students are off for the summer and looking for things to do. So use them. They can intern, whether that's a paid internship or an unpaid internship, working with a college or university, bringing those students, volunteers as well, who want to be able to give back. Think about the summer travel that happens, right? Whenever I travel for the summer, I love to be able to give back to my old high school. and just talk with them about college and understanding what that means. So you have people doing that already. How can you, as a high school, put that message out there? We want to do a summer bridge program, or we want to open our campus and help students to understand. Teach them about summer melt. You know, it's so interesting. All of this research that we do, like you said a little bit earlier, we sometimes stay in our bubble, right? And we're talking about summer melt with each other, but my students don't know what summer melt is. And those are the ones that are melting. So talk to them about what is this summer melt research. Show them the research. Help them to understand. And once you help the student to understand that, talk to them about not being a statistic and really getting out there and figuring out, here's the steps I need to take. And the high schools, here's the steps I need to take in order to stay in touch with these students, as well as the families and the communities. Churches. Let's talk about churches. Churches every Sunday get a whole community of people together and have an incredible pulpit to be able to talk with their congregation. Why not give them the information so they can help their young people, that they can help the parents? Give them this information and help them to understand. So just thinking about how many different places I can exhaust with talking about summer melt, this little phrase that we have, and make it real for these students that, again, are going home, sometimes single parent homes, sometimes mom and dad have 2 and 3 jobs, and they really don't have anyone there to talk to about this. So get others involved so that they have mentors and they have professionals to be able to go to as well.
What an awesome concept. I never even thought to bring it to, I mean, it makes so much sense when you say it, but I never actually thought of going to a community like a church and bringing this concept into the community at large like that. You know, there's so many other things that we do that with already. Why wouldn't you do that with the issue of students not enrolling in higher education? It's a brilliant idea, and I love that. It does need to be talked about more because, yeah, I mean, to get back to that higher ed bubble, you know, there's so many terms we throw out there that if you were to say to a high school student, they'd just be like, what are you talking about? You know, even like deposit day and, you know, and summer melts, and I'm trying to think of other ones, but they're failing. But, you know, it's true. We get so built into this system that we forget to actually be able to provide the resources and the understanding of what it means and how you can avoid falling into that space. And I do think we need to do a better job as a community to be able to find better ways like that, like bringing it into the churches or bringing it into other communities that the students are a part of, because those resources are so vitally important. And bringing in those potentially unemployed students over the summer to be able to have that conversation. I love it because it's true though. They're not going to want to hear it from me. You know, I'm on a date and I can fully accept that. But, you know, I'm thinking of a few of our own student ambassadors. I can even see that them going back to their own communities and doing that. And that makes so much sense on the college side and on the high school side. So many students go back and visit their high school anyway to go say hey to their teachers. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that and ask them, come and talk to your classmates. They will learn best from those who have seen these experiences and asked these questions and didn't ask these questions, as you mentioned earlier, you know, and fallen into these pits, and this is what happens, and this is how to avoid that. And I love that idea. Awesome. We're just going to solve all sorts of issues right here in this show, I'm telling you. But I guess we've already started talking about it, but I'd love to get more into, you know, there was this concept in some of the articles I read of, you know, what are low-cost scalable support systems? And so, you know, you brought up a great one of, you know, taking advantage of having these students coming back and talking to their communities. You mentioned there's some great resources out there. I know that a few months ago we had Don Frazier on, who is one of the folks over at College Snaps, which I know is doing some great work in this and helping to give students resources. But I saw some conversations around, you know, texting and outreach like that too. So, you know, you mentioned Snapchat. Are there other things that you know, maybe for high schools that are saying, well, I don't quite have the budget to stay open over the summer, or to, you know, do these bigger scale things? And so what are kind of small scale things, so good places to start, I guess, that you would recommend?
Right. I'm going to go right back to social media again. It's free. It's free. Kids are already doing it. anyway. And I think you just have to find that avenue. So whether that is starting a Facebook page or a Facebook group, and they're already doing this, right? Class of 2015, they're already doing this. So how can you, because sometimes students don't want you to infringe upon their group. So how can you kind of do the same concept? So starting a Facebook group, class of 2015, summer melt, or let's talk about the summer, what are we doing for the summer, and how do you leverage that? So you may not be able to call every single student during the summer, but you can get them to go on Facebook, and you can get them to go into this group, and where you'll say, we're going to talk about this summer, here are all the different things that you can do. And sometimes the students even take over the conversation, right? And talking about the different things that they're doing. We saw that a lot, again, back in housing, when we moved from assigning students their roommates, and so when social media popped in, they were doing it themselves. We were excited because you know yourself a lot better than we do. So the same type of concept of going and using social media and making sure that students know this is the one place that you're going to go to, and we're going to talk about it. And that's one place I want to pause on. One place, right? With the internet, there are so many places you can go to help you to understand the college process and all these different things. But the bad part of that is there are so many places you can go to. Yep. And students often get overwhelmed with information. So I like to tell schools, try to pick at least maybe one or two and help the student to minimize it. If I'm going here and there and I have 30, 40 different resources, that's a lot. So help your students to maybe choose one for the summer or two for the summer, where they're going to get information from there. Obviously, they want to be in touch with the university. And so I think that's a free cost to be able to do that. You don't have to pay for anything. You talked about text messaging, and there are definitely certain areas across the country where they're starting to use text messaging. I had a little bit of an opportunity to talk with Ben and Lindsay before I left the district to start out on my own, and talked about their work with text messaging and how just a simple text, and they set it up with another company, would send a text message to students from their guidance counselor, or an automated text message just talking about FAFSA, giving them reminders and different things to do. Why can't we do this for the summer? You know, our students are always, I have my phone with me all the time. Our students are always on their telephones and using it, and just to have a text message pop up, and that's how they talk now. Being able to have that text message and say, did you forget to do this? Did you remember to do this? Just simply raising that level of communication with the students. And if they had questions, they could have someone on that text message who they could talk to. And yes, you can definitely do that. And so if you are not working with a service right now, there are apps out there that I believe you can use. Just go on your phone, go on the App Store, and it will send a group message. Some of them are free or 99 cents, you know, but depending on what the cost, I think it's a very low cost to be able to affect students and really help them to understand about moving through. I think obviously another big low cost is be proactive. You know, tell the students about this, educate the students about this, continuously educate them about, and give them the numbers. Give them the numbers. Better yet, if you find a student in your district who experienced summer melt, how awesome would it be for this student to come in and tell their story? Now, I would love for that student who's coming to tell their story to be a student who experienced it and still got into college. Yes. Because you want to go from there. I'm not sure about asking someone who's maybe still struggling and maybe they don't want to talk about it right now. But being able to, again, bring that peer-to-peer contact, how can you help them to understand what it really looks like? When you're talking about first generation, you're talking about low income, we think in reality. How does this affect my life? If I see a student on the stage who has the same kind of questions as me, is talking like me, and is talking about this concept called summer melt, light bulb moment, I probably don't need to go that direction, and here are the steps that I can take to go from there. Again, putting together a newsletter is creative, whatever you want to do, an online newsletter, a newsletter that you're handing out in the classes, and also talking about as well the teachers. How can you get the teachers involved in this conversation? And with some of, I think, state legislature and different things happening and going on, there are certain college readiness pieces that have to be involved within our academic classrooms. How can you bring in this message with them? We have to talk about financial aid. Let's go ahead and talk about summer melt too within the classroom and what that means as well. So I don't think I've named anything that actually has a cost to it at this point. So I just being creative with different things that are happening and where students can go from here, I think is very important.
Absolutely right. I think that's all those suggestions are things that any school can very easily pick up and incorporate into what they're already doing. And I'm glad that you mentioned the teachers too, because I think it can be so easy to put this on those that are kind of working step by step with students through going to college. But sometimes students are going to have a better connection with a professor or with a coach or somebody else at the school. And it's not necessarily always going to be their counselor. And like you said, bringing in those students too, they can connect with them. But I think the more people who are talking about it, the more people who understand what it really means, the better off that those students are going to be, because so many people in their lives are aware of it and are trying to help them not become one of those statistics that fall into that space of summer melt. So I hope all schools consider employing some of those suggestions that you made. And I want to remind people, there's some great tweets going on over on Twitter with the hashtag, but please use hashtag HigherEdLive if you have any questions or anything else you want us to mention, as we're kind of coming closer to the close of the show. But I do want to kind of loop back into just talking about some of the resources on our college campuses that we want to make sure we're kind of involving in that conversation earlier on, because like you said, Res Life should absolutely be involved in this conversation so much sooner. You know, I think it's so easy to defer it until, okay, students know what their housing is, now you're going to be working with Res Life. We shouldn't be waiting that long. So are there any other offices that you would suggest to schools to sort of form that connection, form that sort of bridge over the summer, that should be more involved in this conversation beyond admissions? Yeah, to tell you the truth, Nicole, I believe the whole university should be involved with it, because we're all there for the exact same purpose, and that's to make sure that we are bringing in students that we can educate and that can change the world. You know, we want them to be responsible citizens. So I think that everybody needs to be involved with it. Obviously, if I'm going to say certain things, you're talking about admissions, you're talking about the registrar's office, you're talking about housing as well, you're talking about the orientation staff, you're talking about everybody that's involved within higher education and the university itself. So again, going back to, can you do a phone bank? That happens during the summer. Students can call in talking about different things. The phone bank doesn't just have to take incoming calls, push out as well. Calling students, if you haven't heard from a student, we all know in higher ed that not all students matriculate. And so when do we get to that piece to where we're contacting them? We're talking about retaining our students. We know certain days of classes we're getting into, oh, we don't have all of our students here. Why don't we do that during the summer and talking with them about that? Again, Residence Life, my RAs would have loved to do that. Definitely my hall directors would have loved to do that. Teachers, whoever you have on the campus, really helping them. But when you're talking about those main ones, financial aid for these students, a financial aid office, students need to know it is okay to contact the student, or it is not okay. Students have those questions. Obviously, we know it's okay. Contact the university for these things. Also for this are strategies that the students can go into with contacting the registrar's office as well. With my classes, again, students don't understand about dropout. They don't understand about how many courses and different things from here. So how can I talk with these particular students about that and what that means? So everybody should be involved from there. And admissions has to be able to lead that about going and making sure that they're involved from here. Definitely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love, I think as we're kind of coming to a close, the biggest two things that have just resonated through this whole entire show is communication and collaboration. It is the two biggest things that can really help us to try to address this issue, to support our students, to do what we can to help address this national issue. And so as we kind of wind down, is there anything else any other advice that you want to put out there, any other things on this topic that you want to make sure are said to the viewers today about how to support students?
I think that one thing we didn't mention is talking to the students, right? Students are going to be able to express to you how they're feeling, and even before the summer, talk to these students and again, because they don't know the questions out there, being able to talk to them about their feelings. First generation students, low income students, talk to them about what's going on, this whole process. How do you feel about the process? What do you know? What are you really excited about what you know? And what are some of the things you're just kind of wondering and going from there? Because that gives us our calendars. That gives us our tips, and advice. And you start to see the pattern going on from here and there. So talk with the students and ask them, say, I'm trying to help. What advice do you have for me to help you about different things? Because they don't know everything, but they can at least tell you, well, you know what, there's nobody at home for me to talk to, so I don't know what to do. Light bulb should go on. Okay, this student needs help when they're out of school. How can we help the community to be able to help these students if the school's closed, but they can still get the help they need?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I have learned so much myself from this episode, and I hope that our viewers have done the same. Like I said, there's some great tweets over on Twitter, and I'm sure people continue to put them out there as they check it out in the archives. So thank you again, Yolanda, for being part of the show today.
Thank you.
And I want to put in one more plug, and I will tweet it after the show's over. Definitely check out her show starting, you said June 19th is going to be the first time. Awesome.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. So keep an eye out for that, everybody, and I will tweet the promo for it. So thank you once again, and thank you to all our viewers today for tuning in. Thank you as always to our program sponsors, mStoner and Chegg Enrollment Services. Coming up next on Higher Ed Live tomorrow, host Heather Shea Gasser speaks with Kristen Abel, Dwayne Campbell, and Sue Caulfield about confronting the stigma of mental illness in student affairs. Get reminders about this and other great shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. Browse the archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to the Higher Ed Live podcast on iTunes. I'm Nicole Lentine, back next month with more Admissions Live. Thank you.